Welcome back to the channel, folks. We've got a car subwoofer we're going to be installing on the first gen Tacoma here. This is from a company called, sorry if I'm pronouncing this wrong, Blogel, and it is a 10-inch 800 watt subwoofer, which I believe has like a an amp included in it. Actually, let's bring this over to the bench. We'll do a true unboxing here and see what we've got inside. All right, so here's the box. Let's go ahead and pop her open. We've got some cables, looks like a power wire, RC cables that are gonna run to that new head unit I just installed in the last video. I think this is gonna be a signal wire, and we've got an inline fuse, all good stuff, and then a ground wire as well. This is a boost controller, so you can basically set this up somewhere near your seat while you're driving. That way you can actually manually change the amount of bass that you have running through the subwoofer. That's pretty neat. Go ahead and take some foam off here. Looks like we've got some mounting brackets and another small wire. Some instructions, always helpful. Wiring diagram. Kind of set this aside. And we'll pull this out. And this is the Blogel. I think I'm pronouncing that right, but this is the 10-inch subwoofer. It's got all of your ports on one side here, and then this is basically intended to mount underneath a seat or in a small space. So I think with the first gen Tacoma, I'm gonna put this right under the driver's seat, and it should be a pretty clean install. You'll really never know it's even under there, and it's just right now obviously unused space. It's just underneath the seat, so that'll work nice. Get some bass up in the bum, and see if we can dive into this. Just like anything else electrical, we're gonna go ahead and disconnect the negative terminal on the battery. That way we're not disconnecting things while the battery's still hooked up. So we'll just pull that off the post and set it aside. So I think for starters, because the power wire is probably gonna be the longest one we're gonna have to run, because this is just gonna run from the subwoofer underneath the seat to the back of the stereo. Same with the signal wire, and then the ground, we'll try and ground it somewhere on the chassis right underneath the seat. And then this guy will also be easy to wire inside. So this one is probably gonna be the more time-consuming wire to deal with, because we have to add this inline fuse to it and then also route it from the engine bay into the interior of the car. So for starters, we're gonna wanna add a little ring connector here to the end of it, which, yeah, we'll just go ahead and splice some of this off of here, and then we'll slide over this little connector end here so we can cinch it down over it once we're all set and crimped. And then we're gonna go ahead and take our O-ring here and get it in there. I think actually what I may do is trim this back a little more so I can kind of double up on the wire and make it fit really snug. Just gonna take off a little bit more of the casing. Then I'm just gonna kind of fold the wire in on itself to give it a little bit more girth, a little more bulk. Just like so. And then we can cinch this over it. And I think I can probably get away with using this tool to do it. So I'm just going to cinch that down onto there. Oh, and guess who forgot to install this thing? So now that's on there. Dang it, I would have liked to have done that, but you know what? That's okay. I think they did give me an extra one. I'm not sure. I may need that for the ground wire though. So we'll live with this for now. So this is gonna go to the power side of the battery, and then we need to add this inline fuse somewhere about, here. So we'll go ahead and just take this apart. And then if you look on here, it's just two little Allen keys that basically you put the wire in and then you cinch down the Allen keys around it. And then you've got your inline fuse, which has this obviously clear casing, so you can see if the fuse ever goes, you'll see it broken in half. So I've gone ahead and started just routing all the wiring. I've started with the power cable, so I'll show you where this goes. Obviously this end here is gonna get connected to the positive post on the battery. So I've ran it up and along here, down. You can kind of see it hidden in the red there. I've got it running underneath the brake booster and then through the firewall right about there, where I also have my rear view camera wire going in. And I think I have, what else? And I also have my negative wire coming back to the battery for the stereo. So that's the routing for the power wire, at least in the engine bay. Just goes here, traces along the fender, against the firewall on the back, underneath the brake booster, and then in through that grommet. On the inside of the vehicle, you've got the same little grommet coming inside right there, and I basically just peeled the carpet back up here, took off this little kick panel, that kick panel, so I could peel the carpet back. And so we have that red wire coming down, chasing along here to the seat, and then it punches in and then pops out right where the factory seatbelt wiring comes up. So it's just a little gap in the carpet there. So I've got the power wire in red coming through, and I've pulled all the excess through. You can also see that I've taken the same route with the RC cables and that small, basically signal wire. Those go the same route out through here to here. You've got the RC cable and the signal wire. Everything is just kind of set up and mocked up. I haven't zip tied anything down yet, but essentially those two are going to go to the back of the head unit, which is going to get routed that way and then up into the head unit. And then the power wire just goes into the engine bay. This is kind of how I want to set up the subwoofer in the back. So all of the ports on the subwoofer are on this side. So that way, obviously the cables are on that side. The only issue I have is the ground wire that was supplied is not quite long enough to go from there underneath the seat back out to here. And you can actually see where the last owner had used a couple self-tapping screws to ground out their old unit, which I may do a similar route since he's already managed to, I guess, put holes in the chassis there. I may as well just reuse them. And because the supplied ground wire isn't going to be quite long enough, I'm going to go ahead and just swap out for this other wire I had laying around. It's got a lot more length to it, and I can feed it underneath the seat to those two self-tapping screws that I showed you, and then we'll ground it there. So I'm going to have to attach probably one of these onto this wire, and then we should be able to ground it out. And honestly, you know, I love doing projects like this because they can be a little bit tedious when it comes to routing the wires, but it really gets you familiar with your vehicle in a different way, taking off the panels, seeing what's underneath the carpet, figuring out how you're going to route everything in the engine bay. It's helpful. It's good stuff to know. And honestly, chasing a small little wire through your vehicle, it just teaches you a lot about the routes it takes, even the way that the factory harness runs through the vehicle. So I always like doing this stuff, although running wire can be tedious. I take pride in doing it hopefully in a clean way and really taking my time with it to make sure the outcome looks close to factory. So I think actually the stuff underneath the seat I'm not so worried about because it's all the wiring is going to be hidden. You'll never see it. But for the engine bay, that power wire, I'm probably going to wrap in this black conduit. And once this has like some electrical tape on it, it looks OEM. So you will never be able to see the bright red power wire, and it'll just look like a factory harness going through the firewall. So like I said, just take pride in the little things, doing it the right way, and trying to keep it as clean and tidy as possible. So with the entire head unit disconnected and set aside, I've gone ahead and taken that blue signal wire that goes to the subwoofer, and I've routed it up behind the stereo. And then when I installed this subwoofer, I noticed that there was this amplifier turn on positive wire. And basically, I believe this is going to act as a signal wire. So when the stereo comes on, it's going to send signal to the subwoofer through this wire to let it know that the stereo is on. The subwoofer should come on as well. And that is really the only, not soldering. I didn't actually solder this just because it's all tied up inside the car, but I just used a butt connector here to get that all cinched down. And then all we have is our two RC cables that run from the subwoofer. So you have, I believe, let me see which one is on here. So on the back of the head unit, you've got a bunch of ports. Ooh, these bugs. Here we have sub right and sub left. So red looks like it's going to be sub right, and then the blue, aka the white, is going to be sub left. So we'll plug those in, and then it's just basically going back together. So we can plug I unplugged the antenna for the stereo, we'll put that back in. We can plug the reverse cam back into it, which was rear cam right here, and then the actual, oh, I gotta kind of tape this back up. Shoot. Let me actually set this aside for another moment. while I tape this back up and tidy it up and make it look nice again. So I'm just gonna kind of pinch these wires together, grab this Tessa tape, and just wrap it back up around the harness. Kind of gives it a nice OEM look. There we go. We've got our harness all cleaned up, so we can kind of tuck that back in. And now we can actually reconnect the stereo. So put the antenna in, our subwoofer left and right, and we'll also plug in our actual harness for the stereo. And then lastly, our rear view camera should go right there. And now we should be able to tuck all this wiring back behind here. Make sure not to pinch anything. You can slide that stereo back into place. I know this looks chaotic right now, but it makes sense to me. So basically, I'll kind of explain this. I've just left everything extra long, and I haven't obviously zip tied or cleaned up anything yet. I haven't even put the stereo center all back together. It's plugged in, but it's not all back together. And what I want to do now is test this thing out before I go ahead and tidy up all the wiring and cut my wires to the appropriate length and get rid of all this excess. I want to make sure the thing works and that I set it up correctly. So I've just ran the RC inputs into right and left. Should be pretty self-explanatory. I've got the ground wire here, and I've grounded it to that same spot that the last owner had drilled into, so it's just grounded underneath the seat and into there. And then we've got the signal wire put in the middle here, so ground, signal, power wire. So all that's left to do to test this thing is add our inline fuse right about here to our power wire, and then plug the power wire into the positive terminal on the battery. So I've already hooked up one side of this fuse with our O-ring to the positive. This is the other side, so it's just a little Allen to loosen up this set screw. Just get it enough that you can then take this wire, which I've stripped back, put it in here, and then you're gonna basically twist that set screw down onto it. But I almost made this mistake twice. Make sure you set your cap on beforehand, so that way it's already ready to slide back onto the fuse holder. Put our wire in there, and then start setting down our set screw, which will just crimp down onto the wire. I'm gonna grab a socket real quick, and we'll just make sure that's nice and tight. That should be good. Just double check it to make sure that actually seated on there. So I'm actually gonna kind of fold this wire up over it. Sometimes this stuff is just trial and error, but I'm just gonna fold the wire over itself to give it a little more grip. We'll just loosen this back up. Get our wire in there, and we'll cinch it down. That should be good. Pull that out of there, just double check it. Now we're snug. So then we can take this cap, slide it on over here. Now our inline fuse is all set up, and it's got a couple holes on it, so you could mount it somewhere. I'm not exactly sure where I'm gonna put it yet, but now we're basically at the point where we can attach this to the positive on the battery, reattach our negative on the battery, and see if the system works. Now that we've got the battery reconnected, we've got everything wired up. Again, we've got the ground, the signal, and the power wire. We've got our two RC cables right and left, and then we've also plugged in the controller, which can mount under the seat or anywhere accessible, which just gives you immediate access to change how much bass is coming through the subwoofer. So now we can go ahead and turn it on and make sure everything works. Okay, so our head unit's on. I'm gonna go ahead and just pair up my phone. And then before I actually turn the sub on, which, there we go, actually, I'm gonna pause that. So you can see the light came on, so the power is on. And I do have, because we added the signal wire, we don't have the auto on feature engaged. So I think it's this one. So off is pressed in and on is pressed out. And because we added the signal wire, we don't need the auto power on, because the signal wire is telling the amplifier, or the subwoofer, when to engage and turn on. So I'm gonna go ahead and just try and play something that hopefully won't get me immediately copyrighted. See what we can find. And then I did download the app on my phone, which is much like any other kind of lighting app. Gives you a little RGB screen, so you can choose how the color looks coming out, so we can hopefully turn the light on there. And then we could change the colorway on the actual subwoofer, depending on what we want. So like red, blue, purple, yellow, closest we can get to white. Or you can actually do something like one that follows the actual, where is it? I think it's style. Yeah, so we can do like static, we can do color jumping, we can do crossfade, so it'll fade in and out to colors, all that good stuff. I don't know that I'll use this, but it's kind of a cool option to have, especially at night, might look pretty cool. So we can go ahead and just set a color, and we'll go ahead and play some music. We got some Damian Marley, some Rastafari, should do some justice to a subwoofer. So let me actually turn this up a bit. And this is going to be without sub, and then I'll slowly engage the subwoofer. I got copyrighted for uploading this video, so I have to re-edit it. So thank you to the YouTube lords for copyrighting the music. So I wish I could show you guys what this sounds like, but unfortunately it is what it is. So what a difference that makes. And I was basically just dialing back and forth on there so you guys could hear the difference of just the speakers and then also with the subwoofer. Hopefully that picks it up on camera, but my gosh, it sounds so much better. And just it's a more full sound coming from the audio system. So really all that's left to do now is get this thing positioned under the seat and tidy up all the wiring. So I'm gonna basically trim most of the wires except for like these RC cables. I'm not gonna resplice these, but the power, the signal, the ground, I'm gonna trim to get it to fit. That way we don't have a whole ton of excess cable going on. And I'm just going to be zip tying, cleaning it up, making it basically invisible so you won't know that this is even in here. That's my goal with it. That's my goal with audio and stuff like this is I don't want to, if someone popped the hood or got into my truck, I wouldn't want them to realize like, oh, there's clearly like a bunch of aftermarket stuff in here. I want it to seem kind of OEM, and that's really the look I'm going for. And this under the seat subwoofer, this slim design definitely helps me achieve that because we don't have to have a box in the back seat. Or, I don't know, would you even put it in the camper shell? But I think most guys either have a behind the seat, an under the seat, or just your standard like subwoofer box in the back. So this is cool. I like that it's really sleek and it's gonna just fit underneath the seat, and I already tested it. I'll still be able to move my seat as much as I need to, as much as I normally would, and it won't interfere with this at all. So I'm gonna get to work on doing the boring stuff, which is tidying up all the wires, getting everything put back together with the center console, and cleaning up the engine bay of that one wire. And then I will show you guys the end result. And gosh, what an upgrade. I love doing the driver mods because it just improves the time you spend in the vehicle. So really excited about it. I'm gonna go ahead and jump into cleaning up, and I'll catch up with you guys when it's all finished. The install is all complete. I went ahead and wired everything up, cleaned it all up. You actually can't even see it, but I put this conduit on this entire power wire here to basically just make it look OEM, so you can't even see any of the red back there. And the only red you can see is just this little tab right here coming off the power post. Up inside of the truck, everything looks completely stock. You'd never know that there was an aftermarket subwoofer in here, so I tucked everything away, all the wiring underneath this trim here, obviously under the carpet and into the seat. If we bring the seat up, you can see the subwoofer just sitting underneath the seat. I've got some wiring. I still want to kind of figure out how to, maybe just black electrical tape around that RC wire to just tidy it up, but I cut the power, ground, and signal wires to the exact size that they need to be in order to just not have any excess poking out around underneath the seat. Right now I've got the little controller, the manual controller, just poking out there in front of the subwoofer, so I can just reach down in front of my seat to manually kind of adjust things and tweak it to, let's say, a certain song or whatever I prefer. And then up in the center console, where the stereo sits and everything, there's nothing aftermarket looking. No wires showing, everything plugged in directly to the Toyota head unit and just worked right off the rip. So that was nice. Really a good pairing between that subwoofer and this head unit. It honestly was super easy to install. Now I'll probably get copyrighted, so I'm gonna keep this nice and short, but I'll take the controller that's down underneath my seat and turn the subwoofer all the way off, and then I'll kind of turn it on so that way you can hear the difference in the song. But I'm gonna try and keep it short so this video doesn't get copyrighted. So this is gonna be without subwoofer for the first 5 seconds. So hopefully, again, without trying to get copyrighted here, hopefully you guys can hear the difference. I don't have the best audio set up to actually showcase this. I mean, it obviously, as you guys can probably assume, does way more justice when you're sitting in the car. So, overall, what a clean install. I definitely love taking my time with stuff like this, and when I have a clean wiring diagram like these guys provided, it makes it really simple to hone most of my energy into actually getting in a clean install and tucking all the wiring and all the, like I said earlier in the video, the more tedious stuff, but honestly, you spend time on it and it ends up with a better result in my opinion, and you don't have to go back and fix things up later on because you've done it right the first time. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you guys are enjoying the audio improvements on this truck. Thank you to these guys for sending out this subwoofer. I'll have a link down in the description if you guys want to check it out, along with a promo code to save you some bucks. And I think that's all I got for you today. Keep elevating, my friends. Adios.